Why I love Destiny of the Daleks. Hello and welcome to another video. Now this week I want to talk to you about a story that is often the target of fan derision for reasons that don't make any sense and don't hold up to scrutiny, because that's Doctor Who fandom for you, but which is one of my favourites, even though it hasn't always been one of my favourites. I mean, it's never been a story that I've disliked. I always thought it was solid, decent stuff. But it's one of those stories that, much like, say, Armageddon Factor, I just keep liking more and more over the years. Every time I see it, I just enjoy it more and more and just appreciate it more and more. And the most recent time that I watched it was just a couple of months ago, late October or early November, and I absolutely loved it. I didn't watch an awful lot of Doctor Who last year, partly due to partly due to a lack of enthusiasm in some respects, and partly because of other things going on in life that made life difficult. But one of the ones I did watch from Classic Who was Destiny of the Daleks, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So today I want to talk to you about why I thoroughly enjoyed it, and why I really rather love Destiny of the Daleks. Now, the number one reason to love Destiny of the Daleks is Tom Baker. I'm sorry, Tom Baker is at the absolute height of his powers, dude. He's just, you cannot take your eyes off him. He's on a roll, man. This show is his. He is the king of the world, as I'm sure he said himself at one point or another. He's just magnetic. He's magnificent. He's the Doctor. Nobody else comes close, certainly at around this period. Another reason to love Destiny of the Daleks: Lalla Ward making her first appearance as Romana, and what a magnificent Romana she makes. To be fair, Romana doesn't get that much to do in this, and yet Lalla still manages to make just such a striking impression and so effortlessly slip into the role. It doesn't hurt, of course, that she's just absolutely bloody beautiful. And like Tom, albeit for certain different reasons, you just can't take your eyes off her. Another reason to love Destiny of the Daleks: Romana's regeneration scene. A scene that sent a generation of anal, tight, arse-clenched, humorless fans into paroxysms of rage and fury, and which always makes me crack up every single time I watch it. I think it's really funny, very, very, very well done. He does the transition incredibly smoothly and easily and without any fuss, and it's just plain freaking funny. I'm sorry, it's just plain funny. No, not today. Again, Tom just cracks me up in that scene. Just wonderful. Another reason to love Destiny of the Daleks, and again something else that has been inexplicably bashed over the years by people who apparently have no comprehension of the words that come out of their mouths: the direction by Ken Grieve is absolutely fabulous. It is not hyperbole to say that Destiny of the Daleks is probably one of the best directed classic series stories. I mean, certainly when you put it next to, some of the stodgy stuff like The Visitation or stuff like that, Destiny is a stylish AF production. The one complaint that has any kind of legitimacy, and which I would say was more down to the costume and props department, was Davros wobbling a bit when the Doctor's pushing him around. Again, I would say that was the fault of the props or the costume department. Exactly what do you expect the director to do about it on the day? I have no idea. Because this story is astoundingly well directed. I mean, I've always pointed out the location shooting with the Steadicam, which is beautiful and slick and stylish. But it's not just... although the location still obviously has the advantage with the Steadicam, the interior, the studio direction is equally as effective and equally as strong. I think Doctor Who magazine pointed out once that He shoots the Daleks from a lower level to make them look imposing and menacing. This is a fantastically well-directed Doctor Who story, and the fact that it doesn't get the credit it deserves for that, solely because of this generation of mealy-mouthed fucking fans who just can't stand anything if it's got humour in it. Oh, God. These people. And I mean, the thing is, Destiny's not a particularly funny story. It's probably the most serious story of season 17, and this is something else that is another reason to love it, which is the atmosphere, because Destiny of the Daleks has great atmosphere. Again, there's some humorous moments, but really after the very silly but very funny regeneration scene, aside from a couple of one-liners, which are we not allowed to have funny one-liners now? I don't know, US mate. This is one of the most serious Doctor Who stories. It's certainly one of the serious stories of the season and the Williams era. It's got a tremendous atmosphere. Again, the location shooting, the noise of the drilling, the moody kind of. It's not so much. It's like diegetic sounds rather than incidental music, of which there is not very much. It's all very effective, and it all has a very good atmosphere. Now, I have on previous occasions kind of thought that the lack of music does kind of make it towards the end drag a little. I didn't think that on this occasion, I have to be honest. I just thoroughly enjoyed every episode, every minute of it. And let's talk about something else. Another reason to love Destiny of the Daleks is the story. It's a really good story. Now, I've heard some people say that Terry Nation didn't write it, or it was massively rewritten by Douglas Adams. I don't know. That seems to fly in the face of what was, what I've heard from the actual production team. I remember them. I certainly remember reading in Doctor Who magazine. I think it was Douglas Adams talking about how they were. Terry Nation gave them a script outline, and it was like, yeah, it's great, but we've seen this before, And they were talking about ideas, about battle computers and two vast armies being perpetually locked in doing nothing, because every move that one battle computer says, the other one immediately can predict, and so they end up doing absolutely nothing. And this was just a casual conversation, and then Terry Nation turns up with Destiny of the Dalek script, and they're like, this is what we were talking about. Now, I don't know. It seems like a very Nation-esque script to me. Again, aside from a few humorous one-liners and the regeneration scene, I don't see anything in this that reeks of Douglas Adams. It reeks of Terry Nation to me. Again, one of the biggest moans I hear is the idea that the Daleks are now robots rather than biological. It's not particularly clear whether that is the case. And if it is, well, Terry Nation wrote it, dude. So he's the creator. He can do pretty much what he likes with it. I've never heard any claim that Terry Nation wasn't happy with this development or anything. He wrote the bleeding script, dude. That was his idea, and it's not entirely certain whether that is the case anyway. The reference to it about how they were once biological creatures. Well, yeah, the colored mutants. Obviously, they're not like that anymore. They're freaking Daleks. They are. Mutated into part robotic creatures. And again, there's a comment later on in the story about the battle computers being perpetually locked in this thing, and that's why they want Davros. Again, as with every other criticism of this story, particularly the direction one, which was just plain bollocks on every level. It just seems like people grasping at the most feeble of straws to try and slag something off just because they don't like the era and they don't like the season and they've got no sense of humour and they need to get a life. That's what it seems to be to me. These criticisms just are feeble. They don't hold up. And they just seem like grasping at straws for some reason to slag it off, just to try and justify their own personal biases. I think Destiny of the Daleks is a fantastic story. I've always liked it. It's not my favourite story of It's not my favourite Dalek story of the 70s. That would absolutely still be Day of the Daleks, in my opinion. That being said, I'm sorry, it's still my second favourite. I'm sorry. I know. How can I not worship Genesis? Sorry, I just think Destiny's more fun and tighter paced, less full of itself. And it's certainly, it's certainly on a different stratosphere entirely to the other Pertwee Dalek stories, Death 2 and Planet, both of which are perfect insomnia cures. And I know, people will hate me again, but come on. In what universe is this story not a million times better than Bloody Resurrection, which is, even its own writer says, is the worst written Doctor Who story ever. Granted, I think he said that before the Whittaker era, but still. I think Destiny's a great story. And the other reason to love it, of course, which is, it kicks off season 17. It kicks off what is still, to me, one of the very best seasons of Doctor Who ever made. I just love this era. I love this season. I love Tom at his peak. I love Lalla. So charming, so beautiful, so watchable. The only thing wrong with Destiny of the Daleks, really, is that K9's not really in it. We get the brief little funny scene at the start where they're justifying the voice change. But he's not really in it, and that's a shame. And apparently that was determination because he didn't want K9 to kill the Daleks, which obviously he would have done. That seems a bit of a shame and a bit of a missed opportunity. I think we would have loved to have seen K9 blasting it out with the Daleks. That's really my only criticism, and that's the only criticism I've heard, which I don't even hear very often except from me, that I would agree with, or has any kind of validity with. I would have loved to have seen that. But yeah, I've always liked Destiny. I've always thought it was a solid, good story. But like some of the other stories in the Williams era, that not necessarily the shining classics that I would immediately have pointed to straight away, just seem to get more and more watchable and more enjoyable as time goes by, like Power of Kroll, Armageddon Factor, other stories that are woefully underrated, and yet they're just really, really entertaining in my book. And that are just some of the reasons why I love Destiny of the Daleks.